So we might not have met. You might have found me because you're interested in addiction recovery. And it's something that I have specialized in for actually almost 30 years. I've been teaching yoga for 25 years. And as I speak, it's the 1st of October, 2022. And at this point, I am actually 31 years clean and sober, which is, it's a deal. It's a deal. It's never not a deal in an interesting way. But if you are interested in addiction recovery, I know there's lots and lots of questions. In October, I'm running a week-long training, which is in person in London, 7 days of 9:30 to 5:30 every day, exploring the mechanisms of the addictive nature. And it's called Mastering the Addictive Personality, and the subtext is the path out of hell. Because if anyone was to say to me, how do I define addiction? I would say addiction is suffering. I think that's what addiction is. So I look at the addictive nature through lots of different lenses, and one of the lenses is obviously shame, abuse, and trauma. Why do I say obviously? What an interesting question. I say obviously because although I got sober in 12-step recovery 31 years ago, and I think 12-step recovery, I wouldn't have got sober without it. I have a huge amount of respect for the peer recovery. I do not agree that addiction is a disease. I fundamentally don't agree. I don't like that mechanism that basically means that you're a sick person. I don't like that. And I think that perhaps you might be able to recognize this idea that somehow you're cursed, somehow you're stuck like this forever, you're always going to be this person. And my experience is that that's not the truth. So I'm a Kundalini Global yoga teacher, but I'm also a trauma therapist, and I specialize in all the different aspects of the addictive nature, but also the traumatic history. I'm what's known as a forensic trauma therapist. So I work with, the history, what happened. And then when I run a training or a course, I can be didactic. I can help everybody who's on the course understand what they do with their story, because you do things with your story. You make your story really sacred. You keep your story alive. You keep not necessarily your using story. I can do using stories all day, but I mean, what got you to the point where you used is generally what's known as a tall, dark history. Some people say trauma, but it's surprising how many people do have a tall, dark history. And then, of course, there's that marvelous question of, isn't everybody addicted? I like that question. Isn't everybody addicted? And actually, the answer to that question is quite possibly. It's not my place to judge or comment. I have no idea. But what I think makes my offer unusual is that you are coming to me because you want to change. And that's a very extraordinary moment when you decide that you want to start doing things differently. You decide that you want to start learning about how to behave differently. So the week-long course, it's in October and it takes place in London, and it's only in person. I've done it over lockdown several times, but this one will be in person. And it's intense. But what's really lovely is you don't have to tell your story on it. I run it in a way where you're not sitting there talking about your life history for 2 hours and everyone's kind of sitting there going, oh my God, there's X number of people, when are they going to get to me? It's not like that. We don't do that. But it is group work, and group work is a very, very powerfully transformational tool. And my art, my job, my role, my goal, if you will, is to give you tools for recovery. That's the thing that I'm really interested in. How do you learn to bear yourself? How do you come out of this idea that somehow you're toxic, you're bad, everything you've done is wrong, somehow you never quite made the grade? But actually, the flip side of that is I have never met an addict or somebody with a tall, dark history who isn't extraordinary. That's one of the things I find really fascinating about trauma. So the art is to dig away all the crap, dig away all the rubbish that's covering up this idea that actually you're extraordinary. You've seen extraordinary things. You've done extraordinary things. And the truth is, a bit like me, I'm never going to be normal because of what I saw, what happened to me, what I did, blah, blah, blah. But recovery is a really interesting route through life, and I certainly like it. So a week-long Mastering the Addictive Personality in October. What could be finer? such an amazing cohort, an amazing manual. It's a good thing to do. So I think you should consider joining me. And if you're watching this video and you did the course before, if you did the course in lockdown, you do get a 30% discount if you want to come and do it in person. So join me, beautiful people.